2024 Paris Olympics is one of the most spectacular equestrian productions in modern history. The Versailles Gardens are as glamorous as they are iconic. The French added their artistic attention to detail, and the Americans entered one of their most talented Olympic jumping teams. Whether or not they medal is often determined by small imperfections. I want to welcome Diana De Rosa, who is the worldwide correspondent for Equus TV. This is her 10th Olympics she's covered. Unbelievable. And so you can actually compare what the site is for this one compared to the others, although the big equestrian, the jump off, which I'm most interested in, hasn't come up yet. It's the final in the series of equestrian events, but I understand you got an amazing opportunity just to see the opening ceremonies. Why don't you just give me your feeling, what it was like to arrive in Paris and what's happening with Olympics in general?
You know, whenever you go to an Olympics, and for someone that's been to 10 of them, you kind of know the ropes, and that is that relax for 3 to 4 days because you're going to get very stressed and things aren't going to go right. But by the 4th or 5th day, things are going to start to pan out and you'll start to feel more comfortable. And that's exactly what's happening now.
Tell me a little bit about the location for the equestrian events, which is most of my audience interest. And how is it compared to the previous Olympics? Is it that unique, and what's unique about it?
It's being done in front of the Palais de Versailles. So it's in Versailles, France, which is about an hour, a little over an hour from Paris. So it's in an area that's beautiful. It's kind of interesting because we're staying in a place here, and you know, you sort of look at it and think, wow, this looks different than what I'm used to at home, but it's really cool. Lots of stores next to each other. But the venue itself is beautiful, and I would say comparable to the last few Olympics I've been to. I mean, I've seen a really improvement in all of the Olympics. They really do it right now. You know, they make sure the horses are taken care of. They make sure the barn conditions are good, and they make sure that the grooms are, you know, there's so much more effort and energy put into it. So it's on par, I think, with, you know, the London Olympic Games, the Rio Olympic Games. They were all pretty darn good, the facilities.
The major organization that is funding the Olympics in France is one of the big companies that manufactures, distributes Louis Vuitton, etc. LV something. And I see the graphics are beautiful. The French have a particular flair for fashion and for design and for perfection. And he changed the color swath just slightly to bring it to a more modern vintage. And maybe you can comment on that, and also comment a little bit about, have you seen some of the USA equestrian riders with Polo Ralph Lauren with their outfits? They're very, very unique.
Yeah, no, I've definitely seen some of the riders because 3 of them went today in the cross country course, which was magnificent. And it's amazing what you see out there, the countries from, there were 64 riders from all over the world. I mean, even places like Morocco, and of course, France and the United States, and the big ones, you know, Germany, and the British people were there. And it's really, you know, you only think that those are going to be the ones that are there, but there was Poland, there was Portugal, there was Slovenia. I mean, so many that you wouldn't expect to be there. So it's wonderful.
I'm not asking you to handicap where the U.S. is going to go, especially in the jump or any of the equestrian sports, but maybe you get a feel for how they are going to size up, or do you believe they're going to medal in some way, shape, or form, or have there been other countries that have emerged? That's happened in some of the sports where, even in basketball, some of the lower caliber teams, of course, they have a lot of American athletes playing in colleges here, but now they're playing for their country and their homeland. And is the same thing happening in the equestrian sport, or do we have a good chance to be medalists in each one of the 3 divisions of the equestrian sport, or is it going to be a real challenge? What do you think?
I think the last few years, it's been interesting because I feel like they've done some changes. For instance, normally there's 4 riders and you can do a drop score. Now there's only 3 riders that they compete in the different events, which means you have no drop score. But what that's done is it's opened the door for the lesser known countries to really get a chance. And I think the eventing part, which is going on now, is a good example of that, because Japan is right now in the top. We don't know until after the show jumping what the results are going to be, because anything can change. So just because there's an order doesn't mean that will stick one reel down and you could go to the bottom when you're at the top. So it's pretty interesting. But just seeing that Japan is up there is pretty amazing to me. And I personally think it would be wonderful if they got a medal.
That's interesting. We don't typically think of Japan being in the show world of the equestrian sport, although in racing, very, very strong in the thoroughbred area in Japan. In fact, we're starting to import some of the thoroughbred blood back that went over that way to diversify the pool of genes. Just so everyone knows, that the team is going to be McLain Ward, 2-time gold and 2-time silver medalist, Kraut, 1-time gold and 1-time silver medalist, Kent Farrington, a silver medalist. And we do have a fourth as an alternate, do we not, who's Karl Cook? But will that fourth person, whoever that is, will they get a shot at going for the individual medal anyway, or that's up to the team to decide who goes for individual?
I do know that in the past, sometimes there have been some changes, but to be honest, I have to check into the rules for that, because that is a question. That's a good question. But the thing that I want to talk about is that if you came to me and you said, who do you think is going to make the team? I would have said Kent Farrington, McLain Ward, Laura Kraut, because they tend to make it every time, and they are an incredible three musketeer match and have really brought home incredible, medals in so many of the Olympic Games. But that fourth one tends to be, you just don't know, and very often that changes. And it has nothing to do with politics. These are really the incredible top three people in the world.
Well, just so anyone listening understands that you're speaking from the hip here, because we talked about this in advance. We didn't have any idea about who would be on the team, and those are the three that you mentioned. So it's not, I wish I had you handicapping the races this way, but but you said that, and I recognize this, and I happened to be fortunate to run into Kent Farrington in Florida for an interview, and he said, well, this is my homeland, Florida, and this is where he's making a real effort to get back heavy. So he campaigned heavily for this Olympics for this year. And the same thing with Karl Cook. He's from California, and, he's got to travel a longer distance. Most of the people that are showing are from East Coast, so to speak. He's the one from California. I believe he's in it. He won the Hampton Classic. I don't recall if it was last year or the year before, but very nice guy, very, very purposefully strategizes to win, and very polite gentleman, but a hardcore competitor. So I hope he's in it, because I like the guy. He was great to talk to. Well, it's interesting, again, only from previous interviews, he won the Hampton Classic one year, and he said, I was speaking to my home farm in California. I was already out like in Ohio or Michigan. And they said, what are you doing next? And when are you coming home? He says, well, I'm halfway to New York. I think I'll go the rest of the way, try the Hampton Classic. That's the kind of guy he is. He said, I'm going to give it a shot. And he was surprised he did so well. And he's really a good competitor. He deserves it if he gets it. But will that individual fourth get a chance at a medal? Because I think in years past they had allowed that. Maybe there was only three that could ride, but whoever was in charge of the team says, well, the fourth person's been hanging out with us the whole time, they deserve a shot, and they sit someone down for the individual. I could be wrong, but that's what I recall from the past.
And you never know, because I'll tell you a little secret here. Will Coleman was supposed to be in the 3-day event, and he ended up not being able to do that. And so Liz Halliday took his spot. So you just never know. I mean, it doesn't even have to be that the fourth one is included. It can simply be that one of the three doesn't make it, their horse doesn't make it, and they end up in there.
Or with transportation and all sorts of other issues, being a veterinarian, it's not infeasible to think that one of the horses runs into a problem when they're over there, and they say, well, I guess the horse rider combination is such an intimate connection. That's what wins it, the team.
Yeah. So, and listen, I did find out Karl Cook is the reserve rider on this. So yeah, he's going to be there.
All right. Well, I gave you a heads up here from New York to Paris, but it's interesting because there were many names listed and there was many lists of who was going to be in it. A little confusing if you don't understand the sport, but I'm so glad he's the man, because He's a tough competitor, but one of the nicest guys. I mean, sometimes you think the tough competitors want to beat the hell out of you, but he's a nice guy, and he's a gracious loser, but he's also a very proud winner. We're here with Dr. Heather Sherman. She's now the supervising vet for the USA Equestrian Jump team, and I welcome her. She's been in practice with John Steele and Associates for 9 years, is now a partner there. She follows a very prominent veterinarian, Tim Ober, Dr. Tim Ober, who I know very well from my Tufts days, and he did this for 22 years, and he's sort of passed the torch on to Heather Sherman. I'm sure she's totally qualified and anxious to do this and has a tremendous resume, but that's not the point of today, to hear about your resume. There's no job offers here. We're just basically trying to find out, for those that are still in the States and they're wondering what it's like to have landed in Paris, now at the Olympics, a unique environment. What's it like to just be exposed to all this?
Yeah, so it's been, we actually just got onto the venue today. I've actually been over here for the past week, over here meaning Europe, because our horses for the team have all been based over here, more or less for the past 8 weeks, I would say, maybe a little bit, some a little longer, but they've all kind of set up camps here in Europe. So for the past week, I've been kind of traveling around, seeing our horses, kind of in their final preparation. And so we got to venue today, which is absolutely incredible. It's on the Palace of Versailles, and we got a chance to walk around, see the stabling and see the venue and watch the eventing final today. So that was a good experience. And yeah, it's Olympics. It's, doesn't get better than that.
And the French are known for really going over the top with their attention to detail and their fashion and everything else that's going on. And now you're in the Royal Palace Gardens, where the horses have an amazing showground. So I'm sure it's spectacular.
Yeah, it seems like they've done a great job so far. Our horses haven't arrived yet, so we'll see what that brings. But from what we can tell from being there today, everything looks status quo.
Now, your job, a lot of people don't realize, your job is not only to be there and monitor the health care of these horses and make sure the stabling's fine and they're doing well and they don't need a little patching here and there. Having said that, you also communicate with their veterinarians from back home, wherever home is, whether they be there themselves or whether they're at another location, because these horses, as competitive athletes, have unique qualities, each one of them, that keeps them sound and keeps them going and keeps them at their best. And so you're a communicator too, besides being just a straight doctor.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's kind of a very cool experience being the team vet for that reason. You get to establish nice relationships with their home vets, as you said, get to know these horses in competition. Some of them are clients that I see regularly at home, and others are horses that I end up just seeing, throughout the circuit at competitions. But yeah, I mean, my role is to basically be the liaison between what's happening at the show and home vets, as well as there's the whole FEI vet team as well that is at every show. And so I'm kind of the liaison between them and promoting, animal welfare and making sure our horses are presented as best they can and, keeping everything safe, but also keeping communication open with everyone involved with the horses.
Well, I give personal kudos out to FEI and to the Equestrian Olympic team and teams, because they've self-regulated themselves. We're having tremendous trouble in the racing world where they haven't self-regulated, and now they're involved with a major organization named HISA, and that's not a subject for discussion today. But the good news is that you guys are there to regulate, and have been doing it for years, the health care of the horses, and make sure that they're totally fit and sound when they go into competition, and otherwise you would intervene. Now, there can be substitutions. A team is composed of 4 people, 3 of whom are competitors, active competitors, and 1 who's an alternate in the event that either a horse comes up with a problem or a rider comes up with a problem, or the pair. It would be my impression, but you could clarify, if a rider is out, do they get someone else's horse to ride, or would it be more of a team choice? A horse rider comes as a team.
So that's a really good question. So there's 2 things. One is that the Olympic format is a little bit different than our traditional Nations Cup format, in a traditional Nations Cup format at every other show. We've got 4 riders with 4 horses, and everyone competes, does the first round of the team. And we have a dropped score, meaning the lowest score that we put on that first round doesn't count towards the next round or towards the final team accumulation. Here at the Olympics, to kind of make it a little bit more friendly to the general population following the sport, because they don't necessarily understand the drop score and how to follow along who's winning. So they've dropped the 4th rider horse combination, and instead we just have 3 rider and horse combinations that go in, so there's no drop score for the team. And so they do the first round, which is on Friday, and then we do our second round on Saturday, so the same 3 will go back. If there's an issue, there is with horse and or mostly horse, if something happens with the rider, I would have to go back and read the rules with the riders because my focus on the horses. But if there is an issue with the horse after the first round and we deem it unfit to compete, we are able to substitute another horse rider combination in for the second round, which would be the following day.
Okay, and just for the audience, the 4 super individuals picked for the team would be McLain Ward, Laura Kraut, Kent Farrington, all of whom have been in previous Olympics and have all medaled. And then the newest is Karl Cook, who I've personally watched ride and win many awards, super qualified, super horse. And the question is also, is it up to the team leader to decide for the individual riding? Could Karl be a competitor as well as as 2 other choices? That's up to the team leader, or how's that work?
It is up to the team leader. Our team has been announced as those of McLain, Laura, and Kent being our team, with Karl as the alternate. But there is always, for whatever reason, there is abilities to substitute and change who's competing at any given time.
On another note, probably not an issue, but in the States, speaking to you from New York, we heard some comments about the human athletes and some of their housing. They didn't have appropriate air conditioning. They brought their own air conditioners and did all this. Is there anything within the equestrian domain as far as the stabling, et cetera, that might be a little bit unique to France on the green agenda, or anything that might come out?
I will say the US Equestrian team is super organized and super on it in terms of scoping out the site ahead of time and knowing, kind of the layout and what we're going to have access to. The stables are ventilated when I was in there today, so they are much cooler than, it's pretty warm today. And when we went inside the stables, they're significantly cooler. So they have done a really good job, but we are allowed to have fans and things like that as well for the horses, because, horse welfare and the safety of them is everyone's top priority. So the athletes are on their own by now, but the horses are well taken care of. So.
No, and you're there to assure that, and that's a good thing. Yeah. That's a very good thing. So we wish you the best. We hope that it's not only a wonderful time, but you enjoy Paris and the French croissants and all the things that come along with it after all the festivities are over. We hope the USA ends up on the medal stand somewhere. Obviously, we'd like a gold, but somewhere to at least medal, and maybe an individual here or there. I'm welcoming Joe Fargis, one of the greatest riders that I know. Olympic history, well documented, 2 golds, a silver, and he's allowing me this interview from the showgrounds, which I really appreciate. This is just prior to the Paris Olympics for the jumpers. I've spoken to a few people already. Joe, welcome. And thank you so much for your illustrious career. And thank you for at least allowing me to talk to you for a few minutes.
It's a pleasure.
Yeah. What do you think? These are just some general questions. Some of these guys are going over there. The team this year is 3 very established previous medalists and 1 newcomer. We have McLain Ward, Laura Kraut, Kent Farrington have all medaled before, and Karl Cook is the alternate. What's the excitement level for these guys? Are these old troopers, we'll call them, is it just another day at work, or is this something extremely unique? Or even for Karl, is this something that he's going to get kind of nervous about until he gets used to the situation?
The excitement level has to be high. The Olympics are special. They come every 4 years, but the pomp and circumstance and ceremony surrounding them really builds the excitement and the tension, and it's just wonderful to be there. And I'm sure they're going to do their best. I have no doubt. Because they're all professionals, and the excitement will not bother them. It will heighten their sense of awareness, and I'm sure make them better.
Well, we've known each other for many years, and I don't see you smile enough, but I could see when I asked you that question, you were smiling. So my guess is it was bringing back recollections of you in Los Angeles and Seoul.
You know, I don't really think about that. That's time past. I only think about the present and the future. And the present right now is the Paris Olympics, and I hope we do very, very, very well.
Yeah.
What can you say? There's so many things can go right and so many things can go wrong. It's being in the right place at the right time, and I hope we're there.
And you know, each one of these athletes has been focused for whatever time period in their lives, many of them many years, and some almost as many years. They've just dreamt of this moment. So now I'm sure that it's quite a positive emotional shock to the system to look into the Palace de Versailles, the gardens, and say, I'm here, I can't believe it. Pinch myself now, like, let's get to business. Is that about appropriate?
No, yes. The background, the scenery is incredible, the backdrop, and it really adds to the charm and ambience and the whole thing of the game. I don't know if there will ever be a more beautiful show jumping venue than Paris, ever, 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 from what I've seen.
Well,
I watched the 3-day a little bit, and it's just gorgeous.
I spoke to the team veterinarian yesterday, and she said that they're totally prepared, because one of my concerns was in the Olympics at France, they were talking about the new Green Deal, so to speak, and there were no air conditioners, and for the human athletes, they were bringing their own. And she said, no, we have fans. The team is really, really well set up, and she's there. And kudos to the FEI and the US contingent, because they're concerned about the health of the horses. And I know as a horseman, that's always been your priority. As you know, I cover some racing and there's controversies there, but the bottom line is they're well prepared, and each one of the disciplines has their own veterinarian helping coordinate with their hometown veterinarians.
So that was a stream of consciousness, really, but we take good care of our horses. The people I know, there's not a stone left unturned between between the blacksmith and the vets and the grooms. The care is 5-star. Absolutely.
Some people, I go into some of these barns, and they take better care of their horses than they do necessarily of their own house. Some of these people, it's amazing. Absolutely amazing.
I agree, and they should.
Yeah. Now, question to you: the travel there, is that an issue with these horses? Riders is one thing, and a little bit of jet lag, etc. But is there any concern for any of these horses, or are they used to this by now? How does that affect them?
It doesn't. I would say most of these horses have been in Europe for quite a while now, in the time zone, and they're comfortable. Travel with horses is a lot easier than it used to be. I read about man o' war going somewhere on a train from Baltimore to, I don't know, Kentucky. It doesn't happen that way anymore. They're all luxury liners and luxury airplanes and luxury everything for horses. Transportation is easy now.
All right. I'm not going to ask you to handicap the event, but would you say that the U.S., as typical, is going to end up hopefully within medal range? And
easily. There are a bunch of good people. It just depends on centimeters, if a horse knocks a jump down or not. It could happen, it couldn't. They're all pretty good.
Now, for some of the audience that I reach that is involved in multi-disciplines of equestrian sport, and for them, this is like the Super Bowl. This is what they're watching once a year just to get updated on the best riders in the country. What other teams should we be looking at that would be the closest competition? And it's just a hypothetical because you don't know for sure, and I don't either.
There are 5, 6 good, excellent teams. There's France; it's their home territory, so that must give them some sort of buzz. There's us. There's Germany. There's Belgium. There's Sweden, who won the last time. I don't want to leave anybody out, but those are the names that stick with me.
Yeah, well, it was interesting. I only followed a little bit, but I saw the French swimmer the other night, and what an amazing thing for a young man to dedicate himself to the Olympics and to be the best in the world, and then to win in his own home country, not in a foreign country.
Yes. I think that gives them an advantage, just the excitement of being at home.
Absolutely. Also, with the and I'm not a huge follower of every Olympic event, but the fencing, that's a very high level French interest, not necessarily all the other countries. And they said the stadium from the outside, you could hear cheers like it was a Super Bowl.
Yes. They loved it.
Now, when you're in the zone doing what you do best, riding and worrying about just steering your horse to hit every one of the jumps on time, do you hear the roar of the crowd, or is that sort of phased out at some point?
If you hear something outside the ring, something's wrong. You have to be just totally present and riding at the next jump.
So when you're
by what's outside the ring.
So when you're that focused, you tune the crowd out. You basically do what you have to do, and you worry about.
I think you have to. Like I say, I use the word present. You have to be. You're riding a horse toward the next jump. Nothing can interfere.
No, I appreciate that comment because I think different sports and maybe different athletes have a slightly different variation. So, for example, in boxing, when the crowd gets behind a boxer, they hear it.
No, but you have to consider the fact that the horse, if there's a crowd screaming, the horse has senses that it's going to worry it, I think, when it hears noise. So you have to consider the whole picture.
I never thought about it that way. Do you think that some of these horses, when they hear the cheers of a crowd, it encourages them or it could discourage them? I
don't believe that. I think it might cause the horse to be excited. I wouldn't use the word encouraged. It might cause more adrenaline. It might cause fear. I don't know. You have to know your horse.
Right. And the one thing that you've taught me years ago was the most important aspect is the combination horse and rider. It's not just the rider. It's just not just the horse. It's the team, the combination horse and rider. So you capped it off by saying that you have to know your horse and you have to know what would help them quiet down when they need encouragement, when they need to be relaxed.
Yes, one bundle of energy. It's not two. You got to put it in one bundle, one package, horse and rider.
And the two horses that you rode in the Olympics that you medaled with, you described each of them as being really, really hot horses, really having a bundle of energy. So I'd like to hear it in your words, but it sounds like you're sort of riding a rocket, as we say, but you're learning how to focus that energy to do what you need to do.
You guide the rocket gently.
Okay, so you're a pilot of the sort, and you're sitting on a rocket with a lot of energy, and you're hoping to steer it, and you're hoping to keep them relaxed enough to also get their concentration.
Hoping to direct that energy straight ahead of you.
Joe, I don't want to take much more of your time. You're an amazing individual, amazing person. Everyone that I know that knows you has nothing but kudos. You're a gentleman, a scholar. People don't realize how in tune you are with a lot of stuff. Do you have any other words of interest or encouragement to sum up the Paris Olympics? We haven't seen the jumpers yet, but this will get out in advance of that. No,
I just hope the United States does very, very well. And, just say that it was a silver medal rather than the gold medal. That's just a fraction. It's just marginal how the difference is between rounds and with horses. A time fall, a horse touches the rail lightly. The whole result just depends on the day.
Well, Joe, I have to tell you, I know you really didn't want to do this interview. You don't like interviews too much, and I greatly appreciate it. I appreciate your time. You're quite the sportsman. Everyone in the industry looks up to you, and I thank you so much for all the memories, and I do appreciate the fact that you're still looking forward, and that's kind of my slant on life. Otherwise, we get old. So you just got to keep plugging forward. And I'm sure you're as excited about this Olympics, and 4 years from now, you'll be excited about the next.
It's exciting. And the television and the computers really help us get it up close and personal. So there you go.
Joe, it's been my pleasure. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Bye, Doctor.